Little black girl shows up for a job interview. CEO learns her mom's in the hospital and is stunned. The elevator hummed quietly as it carried Elliot Rains to the 32nd floor of TechVantage Solutions. Monday mornings were usually predictable: coffee, emails, and the endless cycle of meetings that kept his software company running. At 42, Elliot had built his reputation on expecting the unexpected in the tech world, but nothing could have prepared him for what waited in the lobby that morning. His phone buzzed as he settled into his corner office, the city skyline stretching endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Mr. Rains?" came the uncertain voice of Jessica, the receptionist. "I have a situation down here." "What kind of situation?" Elliot asked, already pulling up his calendar. He had back-to-back meetings starting at 9, and it was already 8:30. "Well, there's an applicant here for an interview, but..." Jessica paused, and Elliot could hear the confusion in her voice. "Sir, I think there's been some kind of mistake." Elliot frowned. His assistant, Margaret, handled all interview scheduling with military precision. Mistakes were rare. "What's the problem? Wrong time? Wrong person?" "It's more like wrong age," Jessica whispered into the phone. "Mr. Rains, there's a little girl down here. She can't be more than 8 or 9 years old. She's sitting in our lobby with a folder, insisting she has an interview for the software intern position." For a moment, Elliot thought he misheard. "I'm sorry, did you say a little girl?" "Yes, sir. She's been here for 20 minutes. Very polite, very quiet, but she won't leave. She keeps saying she has an appointment." Elliot rubbed his temples. This had to be someone's idea of a joke. Maybe one of his competitors trying to make him look foolish, or perhaps a disgruntled former employee pulling a prank. "Is she with anyone? Parents? Guardian?" "That's just it, sir. She says she came alone. When I asked where her parents were, she got this look in her eyes. I don't know how to describe it. Like she was carrying the weight of the world." Something in Jessica's tone made Elliot pause. In the 5 years she'd worked the front desk, Jessica had seen everything: angry clients, confused delivery drivers, even the occasional lost tourist. She wasn't easily rattled. "I'll be right down," he said, already reaching for his jacket. The elevator ride to the lobby felt longer than usual. Elliot's mind raced through possibilities. A publicity stunt? A test from his board of directors? Nothing made sense. TechVantage Solutions was known for innovation, but they weren't in the business of hiring children. When the elevator doors opened, Elliot immediately spotted her. Sitting in one of the plush waiting chairs, her small frame seemed almost swallowed by the modern furniture. She was a young black girl with natural hair pulled back in neat braids, wearing what looked like her Sunday best, a crisp white blouse and navy skirt that had seen better days but was meticulously clean. Her legs dangled from the chair, not quite reaching the floor, and she clutched a manila folder against her chest like it contained the secrets of the universe. What struck him most were her eyes. They held an intensity he'd seen in his most dedicated engineers, focused, determined, and far too serious for someone her age. "Excuse me," Elliot said gently, approaching her chair. "I'm Elliot Rains, the CEO of this company. I understand you're here for an interview?" The girl looked up at him, and he caught a flicker of nervousness before her expression became composed again. "Yes, sir. I'm here about the software intern position. My name is Amara Johnson." Her voice was soft but clear, with the careful pronunciation of someone who'd practiced what they were going to say. Elliot knelt down to her level, aware that several employees had gathered at a respectful distance, whispering among themselves. "Amara, that's a beautiful name. Can you tell me who brought you here today?" "I came alone, sir. I took 2 buses." She straightened her shoulders with pride that was both heartbreaking and impressive. "I know the way." "And where are your parents? Do they know you're here?" For the first time, Amara's composure cracked slightly. Her grip tightened on the folder, and she looked down at her hands. "My mom was supposed to come with me. But she can't right now." The lobby had grown quiet. Even the usual sounds of ringing phones and clicking keyboards seemed muted. Elliot felt the weight of curious stares from his employees, but his attention remained focused on the small girl in front of him. Amara, I have to be honest with you. We don't usually interview people your age for internships. Our positions require. I know what they require. She interrupted, then immediately looked apologetic for cutting him off. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to be rude. But I've read the job description. I know what you need. Elliot blinked. You've read the job description? Yes, sir. Python programming, database management, basic cybersecurity protocols. I can do all of that. She opened her folder with careful hands and pulled out a USB drive, holding it toward him like an offering. I made this for you. What is it? It's a working prototype. The security program you've been trying to build. The one mentioned in your internal project notes. The lobby fell completely silent. Elliot felt his heart skip a beat. The internal project notes weren't public information. They weren't even accessible to most of his own employees. Amara, how do you know about our internal projects? She looked up at him with those serious eyes, and for a moment, he saw not a child but a fellow programmer who understood the weight of what she was revealing. I found a way in, sir. Not to hurt anything, she added quickly. Just to see what you needed. I thought if I could help, maybe you'd give me a chance. Elliot stared at the USB drive in her small hand. Either this was the most elaborate hoax he'd ever encountered, or an 8-year-old girl had just admitted to hacking into his company's system. Both possibilities seemed equally impossible. Mr. Rains? Came a voice from behind him. David Chin, his chief technology officer, had approached with several other senior developers. Is everything okay? Elliot looked from the USB drive to Amara's hopeful face, then back to his team. David, I need you to run diagnostics on this. Full security scan, code analysis, the works. David took the drive with a puzzled expression. What exactly are we looking at? According to Miss Johnson here, it's a solution to our Phoenix security project. The implications hit David immediately. His eyes widened as he looked down at Amara, who was watching the exchange with the intensity of someone whose entire future hung in the balance. I'll get right on it, David said, his voice carefully neutral. As the CTO hurried away with his team, Elliot found himself alone with Amara again. The lobby had returned to its normal buzz of activity, but he could feel the undercurrent of curiosity from everyone who had witnessed the scene. Amara, he said gently, while we're checking your work, can you tell me a little about yourself? How did you learn to program? She brightened slightly, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. I started when I was 6. My mom got me an old laptop from a thrift store for my birthday. It barely worked, but I fixed it up and started learning from YouTube videos. YouTube videos? Yes, sir. And free courses online. MIT has some really good ones. I also learned from reading other people's code on GitHub. She spoke with the casual confidence of someone discussing the weather, completely unaware of how extraordinary her words sounded. Before Elliot could respond, his phone rang. David's name flashed on the screen. Elliot. David's voice was tight with disbelief. You need to get up here. Now. What is it? This code. Elliot, it's not just working. It's brilliant. Clean, efficient, and it solves problems we've been struggling with for months. Whoever wrote this understands advanced encryption algorithms and real-world application better than some of our senior developers. Elliot looked down at Amara, who was watching him with those serious eyes, waiting for his verdict. Are you absolutely certain it's original work? I've run it against every database we have. It's completely original. And Elliot? There's something else. The code includes comments and documentation that show a deep understanding of the underlying principles. This isn't copy and paste work. Someone actually understands what they're building. Elliot ended the call and knelt down beside Amara again. The morning had taken a turn he never could have imagined, and he had the feeling it was only the beginning. Amara, he said softly, I think we need to have a longer conversation. 20 minutes later, Elliot sat across from Amara in his office conference room, watching her explain concepts that had stumped his development team for months. David and 3 senior programmers flanked them, their laptops open, displaying lines of elegant Python code that seemed to mock their previous attempts. "See, the problem with traditional encryption methods in this context," Amara said, her small finger tracing patterns on the table as she spoke, "is that they're trying to be too clever. Sometimes the best security comes from simplicity, but really smart simplicity." Elliot exchanged glances with David, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Can you walk us through how you approach the authentication layer?" Amara's face lit up. For the first time since she'd arrived, she looked like the child she was, excited to share something she loved. "Oh, that was the fun part. Most people try to build walls that keep everyone out, but what if instead you built a maze that only the right person knows how to navigate?" She pulled out a worn notebook from her folder, pages filled with neat handwriting and carefully drawn diagrams. "I created a dynamic authentication system that changes the pathway based on user behavior patterns. It's like, imagine if your house key changed shape every time you used it, but only in ways that felt natural to you." Marcus Webb, their senior security architect, leaned forward. "That's theoretically sound, but the computational overhead would be enormous. How did you solve the processing speed issue?" "That's where the elegance comes in," Amara said, flipping to another page in her notebook. "Instead of processing everything in real time, the system learns and pre-calculates likely scenarios. It's like how your brain doesn't have to think about walking, it just knows." She looked around the room at the stunned faces. "Did I explain that wrong? Sometimes I don't use the right technical words." "No," David said quietly. "You explained it perfectly." "Amara, how long did it take you to write this?" "About 3 weeks, working at night mostly. I had to be quiet so I wouldn't wake my mom." Her expression grew thoughtful. "She works really hard during the day, so I tried to let her sleep." Elliot felt something twist in his chest. "What kind of work does your mom do?" "She cleans offices downtown. She leaves really early and comes home really tired." Amara's voice carried a matter-of-fact acceptance that made the adults in the room uncomfortable. "That's why I learned to take care of myself. And why I wanted to get this job." "Tell me about your learning process," Elliot said gently. "You mentioned YouTube and MIT courses?" Amara nodded eagerly. "I started with basic HTML when I was 6, just making simple web pages. Then I found these Python tutorials by this really nice lady who explained everything super clearly. After that, I discovered the MIT OpenCourseware site, and it was like finding treasure." She pulled out printed pages from her folder, clearly from a library printer, some with notes scribbled in the margins. "I couldn't always afford internet at home, so I'd go to the library and print out the important stuff. The librarians there are really nice. Mrs. Patterson even helped me find advanced programming books." Marcus shook his head in amazement. "Most of our junior developers struggle with concepts you're explaining like they're basic arithmetic." "Well, when you really need to understand something, you find a way," Amara said simply. "And I really needed to understand this." "Why?" Elliot asked, though he suspected he knew part of the answer. Amara's hands stilled on her notebook. When she looked up, her eyes held that weight again, the burden no child should carry. "My mom's been sick. She tries to hide it, but I know. She gets dizzy sometimes, and she's always thirsty, and she thinks I don't notice when she skips meals so I can eat." The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. "She was supposed to come with me today," Amara continued, her voice getting smaller. "We planned it for weeks. She was going to wear her good dress and sit with me during the interview. But yesterday morning, I couldn't wake her up properly. She was breathing funny, and her skin felt cold and hot at the same time." David cleared his throat. "Where is she now, sweetheart?" "The hospital. The ambulance came, and they said something about her sugar being wrong. The neighbor lady, Mrs. Chen, said she'd watch me, but I told her I had somewhere important to be." Amara straightened her shoulders again. "Mom always says when you make a commitment, you keep it. Elliot felt the room's energy shift. What had started as curiosity about a prodigy had become something much deeper, a story of determination born from desperation, of a child forced to grow up too fast. "Amara," he said carefully, "how did you find out about our job posting? We haven't advertised this position publicly yet." She looked down at her hands, and for the first time, she seemed genuinely nervous. I might have looked in places I wasn't supposed to." "What kind of places?" "Your internal careers page. And maybe some of your project management files." She looked up quickly. "But I didn't change anything. I just wanted to see what kinds of problems you were trying to solve. I thought if I could help with one of them, maybe you'd give me a chance." The adults exchanged looks. David raised his eyebrows meaningfully at Elliot, who was beginning to understand the full scope of what they were dealing with. "Amara," Elliot said gently, "do you understand what you're telling us? You hacked into our system." She bit her lip. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I know it was wrong, but I was really careful not to hurt anything. I needed this opportunity. For my mom." 2 hours later, Elliot found himself driving through a part of the city he rarely visited, his luxury sedan looking out of place among the aging apartment buildings and corner stores with barred windows. Amara sat quietly in the passenger seat, giving him directions in her precise, careful voice. "Turn left at the next light, Mr. Rains. Our building is the brick one with the blue door." The Riverside Gardens apartment complex had seen better decades. Paint peeled from window frames, and the small patch of grass that might have once been a lawn was now mostly dirt and weeds. But the windows were clean, and someone had planted flowers in old coffee cans along the walkway, small signs of people making the best of what they had. "This is it," Amara said, pointing to a first-floor unit. "Apartment 4B." Elliot parked and followed her up the cracked concrete steps. She pulled a key from a chain around her neck, hidden beneath her blouse, and opened the door to reveal a small but meticulously clean living space. The apartment was sparse: a worn couch, a small dining table with 2 mismatched chairs, and a kitchenette that had been spotless until recently. What caught Elliot's attention immediately was the kitchen table, covered with papers organized into neat stacks. Medical bills, insurance forms, and pharmacy receipts created a paper mountain that seemed to loom over the modest space. "I tried to keep up with Mom's filing system," Amara said, noticing his gaze. "But there are so many papers, and I don't understand all the words." Elliot approached the table, his heart sinking as he read the documents. Emergency room visits, endocrinologist appointments, prescription costs for insulin and test strips. The numbers painted a picture of a family drowning in medical debt. "Amara, how long has your mom been sick?" "She says she's not sick, just that her body needs help with sugar." Amara moved to a small desk in the corner where an ancient laptop sat surrounded by library books and printed articles. "But I researched diabetes online. I know it's serious if you can't afford the medicine." The laptop looked like it had been salvaged from a decade ago, but when Amara opened it, Elliot could see it had been carefully maintained and upgraded with whatever parts she could find. The desktop was organized with folders labeled Python Projects, Security Research, and Mom's Medical Info. "She's been rationing her insulin," Amara said quietly, not looking at him. "She thinks I don't know, but I counted the vials. She's been taking half doses to make them last longer." Before Elliot could respond, there was a knock at the door. Amara opened it to reveal an elderly Asian woman carrying a covered dish. "Oh, hello dear," the woman said, then noticed Elliot. "I'm Mrs. Chen from next door. I brought some soup for..." She paused, looking confused. "Amara, who is this gentleman?" "This is Mr. Rains, Mrs. Chen. He's from the company where I had my interview today." Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. "You actually went?" "Sweetheart, I thought we agreed you'd wait until your mother was better." "I couldn't wait," Amara said firmly. "Mom needs help now." Mrs. Chen looked at Elliot with a mixture of suspicion and hope. "Sir, I don't know what this child has told you, but she's been through enough. Her mother collapsed yesterday morning, and it was terrible. I called the ambulance myself. Can you tell me what happened? Elliot asked gently. Tasha, that's her mother, she's been struggling for months. Working double shifts, skipping meals, always worried about money. Yesterday, Amara came running to my door, crying that she couldn't wake her mom up properly. When the paramedics came, they said her blood sugar was dangerously high. Mrs. Chen set the soup on the counter and turned back to them. That little girl has been taking care of her mother like she's the adult. Cooking, cleaning, making sure Tasha takes her medicine when they can afford it. It's not right for a child to carry such responsibility. Elliot felt something heavy settle in his chest. Which hospital is she at? Mercy General, downtown. The doctors said it's complications from untreated diabetes. They're trying to stabilize her, but... Mrs. Chen's voice trailed off as she glanced at Amara. But it's expensive. Amara finished quietly. Everything is expensive. An hour later, Elliot stood in the sterile hallway of Mercy General's ICU, looking through a window at Tasha Johnson. Even unconscious, hooked up to monitors and 4 lines, he could see where Amara got her determined spirit. There was something strong in the woman's face, a resilience that even illness couldn't erase. She's been stable since yesterday evening, the nurse explained. But her condition is serious. Years of inadequately managed diabetes have taken a toll. We're doing everything we can, but she'll need ongoing treatment, proper medication, and follow-up care. What's the prognosis? With proper treatment, she could make a full recovery. But without it... The nurse didn't need to finish the sentence. The little girl who's been visiting, is she really the patient's daughter? The nurse's expression softened. Amara? Yes, that's Tasha's daughter. Sweetest child you'd ever meet, and smart as a whip. She knows more about her mother's condition than most adults would. She's been asking detailed questions about insulin protocols and dietary management. She's been here alone? Mrs. Chen brings her by, but yes, mostly she comes alone. Takes 2 buses each way. She sits with her mother and reads to her, or sometimes she works on something on an old laptop. The doctors have gotten used to seeing her. Elliot stared through the window at the unconscious woman, understanding now the weight that Amara had been carrying. A child shouldn't have to navigate hospital visits and insurance forms, shouldn't have to hack into corporate systems out of desperation to save her mother's life. When he returned to the apartment, he found Amara exactly where he'd left her, sitting at her desk with her laptop open, working on code. How is she? She asked without looking up. She's stable, Elliot said. The doctors are taking good care of her. Amara nodded, still typing. I'm working on something new while we wait. A program that could help track medication schedules and blood sugar levels. I thought maybe other families like us could use it. Elliot sat down in the chair beside her desk. Even in the midst of her own crisis, this remarkable child was thinking about helping others. Amara, he said carefully, I have something to tell you about your job application. She finally looked at him, those serious eyes searching his face for any sign of disappointment. I've made a decision about your interview. First, Elliot said, pulling his chair closer to Amara's desk, I want to understand exactly how you learned to do what you do. Would you mind if my CTO and I looked at your laptop? With your permission, of course. Amara hesitated for only a moment before nodding. You can look at anything except the folder marked Mom's surprise. It's her birthday present, and it's not finished yet. David arrived 20 minutes later, carrying his own laptop and a portable hard drive. I brought the forensics kit, he said quietly to Elliot. If we're going to do this, we should do it right. As they examined Amara's computer, what they found was extraordinary. The machine itself was a Frankenstein of salvaged parts. A motherboard from 2015, RAM that had been carefully upgraded piece by piece, and a hard drive that had been partitioned with surgical precision to maximize every gigabyte of space. Look at this, David whispered, scrolling through her file structure. She's organized everything by complexity and date. This folder here, Learning Journey, goes back 3 years. Elliot leaned over David's shoulder as they opened the folder. Inside were hundreds of files, downloaded PDFs of programming textbooks, screenshots of code snippets from tutorials, and most remarkably, handwritten notes that had been scanned and digitized. "She's been taking notes by hand and then scanning them to save space," David murmured. "And look at this progression. She started with basic HTML and CSS, moved to JavaScript, then Python, and now she's working on advanced cryptography." They found videos she'd downloaded from YouTube during free library sessions, complete with her own annotations and text files. MIT OpenCourseWare lectures that she'd somehow managed to download and watch repeatedly. Forums where she'd asked questions under the username FutureCoderAJ, always polite, always thoughtful, always hungry to learn more. "Here's something interesting," David said, opening a folder labeled Practice Projects. Inside were dozens of small programs, each more sophisticated than the last. A simple calculator that had evolved into a complex mathematical analysis tool. A basic website that had grown into a full content management system. A password generator that had become a comprehensive security suite. "She's been teaching herself through iteration," Elliot observed. "Building on each project, making it more complex. And look at this." David clicked on a file called notes_to_self.txt. It was a digital journal where Amara had documented her learning process. Day 847, finally figured out why my encryption algorithm was failing. The problem wasn't with the math, it was with how I was handling memory allocation. Mom always says that sometimes the answer isn't in trying harder, but in looking at the problem from a different angle. Day 923. Watched the MIT lecture on machine learning 3 times. Still don't understand everything, but I got the main idea. It's like teaching a computer to think, but not really think like humans do. More like teaching it to find patterns, the way I learned to find patterns in Mom's mood when her sugar gets low. Day 1015. Created my first working database today. It's small, but it actually stores and retrieves information correctly. I made it to keep track of Mom's medical appointments and medications. She doesn't know yet. I want to surprise her when it's perfect. Elliot felt his throat tighten as he read entry after entry. Each one revealed not just a brilliant mind, but a child who had been forced to grow up too fast, who had turned to programming not just as a passion but as a tool for survival. "There's more," David said, opening another folder. "Look at this." The folder was labeled Real-World Applications, and it contained programs that Amara had written to solve practical problems in her own life. A budget calculator that factored in her mother's irregular work schedule. A medication reminder system that sent alerts to an old phone. A program that optimized bus routes and schedules to minimize travel time and cost. "She's been using programming to manage her life," Elliot said softly. "Every program here serves a purpose." David nodded, then opened one final folder. Dreams and Goals. Inside was a single document, a business plan for a nonprofit organization that would provide free coding education to children in low-income communities. Mission statement: technology shouldn't be a luxury. Every child deserves the chance to learn skills that could change their life. If I can learn to code with an old laptop and library internet, imagine what kids could do with proper resources and support. The plan was remarkably detailed, including budget projections, curriculum outlines, and partnerships with local schools and libraries. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, was a note. "For Mom, who taught me that education is the one thing no one can take away from you. Elliot," David said quietly, "we need to talk about something else. The security breach, how she got into our system. What about it? I've been analyzing the logs. She didn't just stumble into our network. She found a vulnerability that we didn't even know existed. A backdoor in our legacy system that she exploited without triggering any of our security alerts." Elliot looked at Amara, who was pretending to work on her laptop while obviously listening to their conversation. "Are you saying she's better at cybersecurity than our security team?" "I'm saying she found a weakness that a team of professionals missed. And she did it without any malicious intent. She was just looking for an opportunity." David pulled up another window on his laptop. But here's the thing that really amazes me. After she accessed our system, she left behind a small program. I almost missed it because it's so elegantly integrated into our code. What kind of program? A patch. She fixed the vulnerability she used to get in. She didn't just exploit our weakness, she fixed it behind her. Elliot stared at the screen, then looked at Amara. She hacked our system and then secured it? That's exactly what she did. She left our network safer than she found it. Amara finally looked up from her laptop, her cheeks flushed. I couldn't leave it broken. That would be like leaving someone's front door unlocked after you borrowed something from their house. It wouldn't be right. In that moment, Elliot understood something profound about the child sitting across from him. She wasn't just brilliant, she was ethical, responsible, and driven by a moral compass that many adults lacked. Amara, he said, his decision crystallizing, I think it's time we talked about your future. 3 weeks later, Amara sat in TechVantage Solutions' newest conference room, officially designated as her workspace. The honorary junior developer nameplate on the door still made her smile every time she saw it. But the real miracle was happening 2 floors down in the company's medical insurance office, where Elliot had quietly arranged for Tasha Johnson's hospital bills to be covered through the company's emergency assistance fund. How's your mom doing today? Asked Sarah Martinez, the junior developer who had become Amara's unofficial mentor. She's coming home tomorrow. Amara beamed, looking up from the code she was reviewing. The doctors say her sugar levels are finally stable. And she got the job in Mr. Rain's administrative department. She starts next Monday. What Amara didn't know was that across the building, a crisis was brewing in Elliot's office. Sir, we have a problem, Margaret said, bursting through his door with her tablet clutched to her chest. A big one. Elliot looked up from the scholarship paperwork he'd been reviewing, a full ride to a specialized STEM program that would allow Amara to continue her education while working part-time at the company. What kind of problem? Someone leaked Amara's story online. Elliot's blood ran cold. What do you mean, leaked? Margaret handed him the tablet, where a blog post titled, The 8-year-old who outcoded Silicon Valley, was already trending on social media. The post, written by someone with the username TechInsider99, detailed everything: Amara's surprise interview, her hacking skills, her mother's hospitalization, and even quotes from the internal discussions about her abilities. Who wrote this? Elliot demanded, scrolling through the post that included details only someone inside the company could have known. We're investigating, but sir, that's not the biggest problem. Look at the engagement numbers. The post had been shared over 50,000 times in just 6 hours. Comments were pouring in from around the world, some supportive, others skeptical, many offering help. Tech journalists were already reaching out to the company's media relations department. Cable news networks were requesting interviews. Sir? Margaret's voice was gentle. Channel 7 News is downstairs. They want to speak with Amara. Elliot ran his hands through his hair. Absolutely not. She's a child, not a media spectacle. But as the day progressed, it became clear that the story had taken on a life of its own. By afternoon, 3 major tech companies had reached out offering scholarship programs. A best-selling author wanted to write Amara's biography. A documentary filmmaker was proposing a feature film about her life. The breaking point came when Elliot found Amara in her workspace, staring out the window at the crowd of reporters and camera crews that had gathered in the parking lot. Mr. Rains, she said quietly, are all those people here because of me? Yes, sweetheart. Someone wrote about your story, and now a lot of people want to talk to you. Amara was quiet for a long moment. Will it help other kids like me? The question caught Elliot off guard. What do you mean? Kids who want to learn but don't have the money for good computers or internet. Kids whose parents work really hard but still can't afford things. She turned to face him, those serious eyes holding the same determination he'd seen that first day. If I talk to them, will it help those kids? That evening, against his better judgment, but unable to argue with Amara's logic, Elliot found himself sitting beside her on the set of Good Morning America. The interviewer, a kind woman named Lisa Chin, had promised to keep the questions age-appropriate and focus on Amara's positive message. "So Amara," Lisa said gently, "what would you say to other children who want to learn programming but think they can't because they don't have expensive equipment?" Amara sat up straighter, her voice clear and confident. "I'd tell them that the most important thing isn't having the newest computer or the fastest internet. It's being curious and not giving up when things get hard. My first program took me 2 weeks to write, and it was just a calculator that could add 2 numbers. But I kept trying, and each program got a little better. What drives you to keep learning? My mom always told me that education is the one thing nobody can take away from you. Even when we didn't have money for other things, she made sure I could go to the library and learn. I want other kids to know that they can learn too, no matter where they start." The interview was a sensation. Within hours, #FutureCoderAJ was trending worldwide. Tech companies began announcing new scholarship programs for underprivileged children. Libraries reported increased demand for programming books and computer access. But the moment that would define everything came 2 days later, when Elliot's assistant knocked on his office door. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. Says it's about Amara." The visitor was Dr. James Whitfield, head of MIT's Computer Science Department. "Mr. Rains, I've been following your young protégé's story. We'd like to offer her something rather unprecedented." "What kind of something?" "A full scholarship to our early admission program, starting when she turns 16. But more importantly, we want to partner with your company on something we're calling the Amara Initiative." Elliot raised an eyebrow. "The Amara Initiative? A nationwide program to identify and nurture young programming talent in underserved communities. We provide the curriculum and oversight. Companies like yours provide real-world experience and mentorship. We want to find the next 100 Amaras before they have to hack into corporate systems to get noticed." As Dr. Whitfield outlined the program, Elliot realized that Amara's story had become something much bigger than one remarkable child's journey. It had become a catalyst for change, a spotlight on untapped potential, and a call to action for an entire industry. Later that evening, as he drove Amara home to her newly recovered mother, she asked, "Mr. Rains, do you think we really can help other kids learn?" "Amara," he said, thinking about the dozens of companies, universities, and organizations that had reached out in just the past few days, "I think you've already started something amazing." 1 year later, the grand ballroom of the Marriott downtown was filled with the soft murmur of conversation and the gentle clink of champagne glasses. TechVantage Solutions' annual gala had always been a prestigious event, but this year carried special significance. The company's growth had exploded following their association with the Amara Initiative, and tonight they were celebrating not just financial success, but social impact that had reached children in all 50 states. Tasha Johnson stood near the back of the room, adjusting the elegant navy dress that still felt unfamiliar after a year of steady employment and health insurance. Her diabetes was now well controlled, her energy had returned, and for the first time in years, she could watch her daughter without the constant worry of unpaid bills and uncertain tomorrows. "Mrs. Johnson?" A young woman approached with a warm smile. "I'm Rebecca Martinez from the Los Angeles Times. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about Amara's journey." Tasha smiled, still amazed that reporters wanted to talk to her. "Of course, but I think tonight is really about the children we're helping." Through the initiative, over 3,000 children had enrolled in coding programs across the country. Libraries had been equipped with new computers, teachers had been trained in basic programming concepts, and scholarships had been awarded to promising young developers. What had started as one desperate child's attempt to save her mother had become a movement that was reshaping how the tech industry thought about talent and opportunity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elliot's voice rang out from the podium. "Welcome to TechVantage Solutions' 5th annual gala. Tonight, we celebrate not just our company's achievements, but the power of potential unleashed." The audience quieted as Elliot continued. "A year ago, our company was successful but ordinary. We solved problems, we made profits, and we felt good about our work. But we weren't changing the world. That changed the day an 8-year-old girl walked into our lobby with a USB drive and taught us that genius doesn't come with age requirements or economic prerequisites. Applause rippled through the room. Tasha felt tears prick her eyes as she watched Elliot speak about her daughter with genuine admiration and respect. The Amara Initiative has now partnered with 43 companies, 17 universities, and over 200 libraries nationwide. We've discovered young programmers in rural Montana, inner-city Detroit, and small towns across America. Children who might never have had the chance to explore their potential are now building apps, creating websites, and solving problems we never thought to ask them about. He paused, scanning the room until his eyes found Tasha. But tonight isn't really about statistics or success stories. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most profound changes come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes a child's desperate love for her mother can spark a revolution. And so, Elliot continued, his voice growing stronger, I'd like to introduce someone who needs no introduction, but deserves all the recognition we can give. A year ago, she was a 9-year-old girl with an old laptop and an impossible dream. Today, she's a published author, a sought-after speaker, and the youngest person ever to address the United Nations Technology Council about digital equity. The room erupted in applause as Amara stepped onto the stage. She had grown taller in the past year, her confidence more evident, but she still carried that same serious determination that had captivated Elliot from the beginning. She wore a simple black dress that Tasha had helped her pick out, and around her neck was a small pendant, a gift from her mother shaped like a USB drive. Thank you, Mr. Rains, Amara said, her voice clear and strong as it carried through the microphone. A year ago, I stood in your lobby hoping for a chance. Today, I stand here knowing that chances aren't just given, they're created. She looked out at the audience, which included tech CEOs, university presidents, and some of the young people who had benefited from the initiative programs. When I first wrote that security program, I thought I was just trying to help my mom. I didn't know I was part of something bigger. But I've learned that every line of code we write, every problem we solve, every barrier we break down creates opportunities for someone else. Amara's eyes found her mother in the crowd, and her formal demeanor softened into a smile. My mom taught me that education is the one thing no one can take away from you. But what I've learned this year is that education isn't just about what you can take, it's about what you can give back. She gestured toward a section where several young initiative participants sat with their families. These are the real success stories. Kids like Marcus from Atlanta, who built an app to help his grandmother manage her medications. Sarah from Phoenix, who created a website for her family's small business. David from Seattle, who developed a program to help other kids with dyslexia learn to read. The applause was thunderous. Tasha watched her daughter command the room with the same quiet authority she'd shown that first day in Elliot's office, but now backed by the confidence of someone who had proven herself on the world's biggest stages. Tonight, I want to announce the next phase of our work, Amara continued. The Amara Initiative is expanding internationally. We're partnering with organizations in 12 countries to bring coding education to children who face even greater challenges than I did. She paused, her voice becoming more personal. Because I learned something this year that I want every child to know: your circumstances don't define your potential. Your zip code doesn't determine your dreams. And your age doesn't limit your ability to change the world. As the crowd rose in a standing ovation, Amara looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some new, all united in the belief that talent exists everywhere but opportunity does not. Her journey from desperate child to global advocate had proven that with the right support, any young person could surprise the world. Thank you, she concluded, for believing that the future doesn't belong to the biggest companies or the richest families. It belongs to anyone brave enough to write it.